When you walk into the lab, you should see this setup here. First of all, the computer, that's where your data is going to be displayed. It's going to be displayed as a table here for volume of whatever you're adding and the pH, and then it will plot the graph for you there. You also see that the computer is hooked up to this data logger, and this data logger has 4 things going out of it. This is the power cord. You shouldn't have to touch any of this, but just in case, this is the power going in. This is going from the data logger to the computer. This goes to the drop counter that we'll touch on in a minute, and this goes to the pH meter. Okay, so all this should have been set up for you, even though on your script we give you the directions for it. We're also going to have this plastic little container here. This is your solvent reservoir. It's graduated, but very imprecisely, because all this is just a place to store the solution that you're going to add to whatever it is that's in the beaker. There's 2 taps here. So 2 taps are here. First of all, this is the on-off tap kind of thing. The bottom one, just consider it to be off when it's horizontal, on when it's vertical. This top one is the clever tap. This is the one that you're going to use to adjust the drop rate, and we'll set that up in just a minute. We also have a magnetic stirrer here. This is the little stir bar that's going to go into your solution to make sure that everything's mixed up nicely. Stirrer here, you don't need to touch the left hand knob. That makes things hot. We're not doing any temperature stuff today. This is the stirrer bar, so if I just turn this on, you can see that it makes that little stirrer go round. Okay, you never, by the way, ever put the stirring rod just on the magnetic stirrer like that. That's pointless, but I just wanted to show you it, plus it's kind of fun. Okay, we also have the pH meter. pH meter is contained inside this little buffer bottle. It's no problem having the pH probe outside of the bottle for a few minutes, but if you're just going to have it sitting there for quite a while, put it back in. Certainly when you finish the experiment, please put the pH probe back into the bottle. Okay, so the idea is that you're going to take 5 different types of reactions you're going to do. You're going to have a beaker down here that will have the stirring rod in it. So that will just be stirring away. That is where you start off, for example, with 10 milliliters of the strong acid in there. Then you'll do some weak acid in there. Then you'll do some strong base, some weak base, and so on. This is where one of the reactants is going to go. And the other reactant is going to go into this dispensing thing here. Okay? So setting it up, make sure this has been washed out as appropriate. Clamp it up there. And now you see the third part of the team, and this is this little drop counter. The idea is that we have this set so that the drops go between the sides of this little infrared detector, and as you'll see, and we'll demonstrate this in a minute, you know when it's counting a drop because there's a little red light here that flashes for it. Okay, so one reactant that's going to be in here, one reactant in here. We're going to add the second reactant drop by drop through the drop counter into this beaker, measuring the pH as we do it. Okay, so just to start off, I'm going to do it very, very roughly to start off with. If we were doing this properly, you would take the strong acid and you would measure out nice and precisely about 10 milliliters of it. I'm just doing it roughly to show you how it works. So we put that in there. That's now ready to go. We then take our, in this case, our strong base, the other reactant, and we put it into the reservoir like that. Okay, first thing to do is to make sure that we get the drops at the appropriate level. So you take your waste beaker, just designate one beaker as a waste beaker. Anything waste is going to go into this. Put it in there. Now if I turn this on, the bottom one, nothing happens because my top adjustable one is going shut. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this, and you need to do it sort of gently holding things. Open this so that I get a decent drop rate through it. So that there, I hope you can see that that's dropping in nicely. Okay, now I need to adjust this ever so slightly so it goes through, and now hopefully you can see the little red light going. Cameraman, can we see the little red light going? Anyway, it's a little red light flashing there. That's counting the drops. This drop rate's a little bit higher than one would want. The faster your drops are going in, the less precise your measurement. So I'm going to just turn it down ever so slightly. That's not a bad one. 1/1000. Yeah, it's about 2 drops every second. That's about what you want. So now I've got my drop rate adjusted nicely with that top tap. I'm not going to touch that top tap at all. but I can turn off and on the dispenser with that bottom tap. Okay? So hopefully that now makes sense to you, how I set up the solvent reservoir and the drop count to get the number of drops right. So now I'm almost ready to do my experiment. So I take the 10 milliliters of my strong acid, place it onto the beaker, onto the stirrer, turn that on. You don't want it going too vigorously. And indeed, we have a sort of debate. Do we use the smaller beaker, which gives us more space to see the solvent going in, and for the pH probe to actually get in below the level of the solution, or do we use a larger one which gives us more space for the stirring rod? We decided we're going to use this smaller beaker. So now you put the pH probe very carefully in, and if you have it set up, you see you have enough space for the pH probe on one side of the beaker, and the magnetic stirrer is just nudging on the side of the beaker on the other one. Okay? Now, as soon as I did that, I don't know if you saw, it started measuring the pH 1.42, as you would expect for a strong one. Now to just collect data, it's really nice and easy. You just press this collect button here. Nothing's going to start happening until I turn on my drop counter, but now hold this so I don't disturb it too much. Turn on that, and now I'm starting to collect data. So if you look at the computer screen, you can see the pH will be changing bit by bit as we go up. There's the measurement. Here's the table there. Okay. Now we've got this set up. You shouldn't have to adjust that top tap at all. You just turn it on and off on the bottom tap when you want to. You are going to have to adjust what's in this bottom beaker. You start off with strong acid. When you finish that titration, you'll put 10 milliliters of weak acid in there, and then we'll switch around. You'll take out, instead of strong base in here, you'll put strong acid in here. Strong acid in there, first one strong base in there, second experiment weak base in there, and then you'll do the weak where one of these is a weak acid or a base, the other one is whatever the other one is. Okay, so you need to switch out what's in there, you'll switch out what's in here. Never have to change that tap. If you do change it, then of course you're going to have to go through that whole process again. Hope this makes sense, and look forward to watching you doing the experiment.